เ Good evening, everyone, and welcome here as we prepare for the penultimate race of the regular season here for the Great Lake Truck Series. Tonight we are at the home of the Snowball Derby. This is Five Flag Speedway in Pensacola, Florida. Got about 33 trucks that are getting ready to roll off the grid here at this half-mile racetrack. And these drivers are right on the cusp of determining who the playoff field is going to be in 3 weeks' time. Seth Cole alongside of Alec Collinlix. And Alex, coming into tonight, it's the second time we've got a short track after a road course, and we've been watching these guys in practice all evening long. It doesn't look like anybody's got a steady truck out there.
Well, it probably doesn't help that we're taking these trucks to a circuit that it doesn't belong. We have not run NASCAR at Five Flags pretty much ever on iRacing before, or at least in recent memory since I've joined here in 2020, and so these guys taking these things around completely blind. And that ought to make it very fun because short tracks and blind are a great combination.
These drivers here this evening are going to probably not be winning any beauty contests. It's probably going to be a race of survival. And let's see if we can dial up one of the drivers that's going to be taking the green flag here tonight. I believe we have him on standby. Well, maybe we don't. I thought we had Gavin Fitzgerald available for an in-race interview, but I guess that's not the case. So, as we take a look here at the... Whoop. Oh, we actually have Matthew Rodriguez as our in-race reporter here. So, Matt, starting mid-pack here, kind of in the hornet's nest when the green flag drops. What's the strategy?
Scared. Obviously, the bottom line is dominant lane around this track. We're going to be watching a lot of guys probably struggle with tire wear on the long green flag run with the right front. I'd be a little bit concerned of stack up. If there's a wreck in front, obviously we got to worry about ARCA braking in the back. Realistically, this is like the true definition of no place is safe, no place is place you want to be except the lead.
All right, well, we'll let you get to it. Best of luck. Gonna be a lot of fun to watch here tonight.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, Josh Cottle, he got the pole position. He was the fastest in practice, fastest in qualifying. We're pretty much expecting he's going to be the fastest here in the race, but DJ Stagner with a pretty good lap time in qualifying there as well. Minnie Mouse there on that outside row. Then you got Elliot Henderson, Ashton Lawson. We'll be keeping you guys aware of what the playoff standings look like here during the course of this race, but we are green here at Five Flags.
And as we clearly saw, a fantastic start from the front two rows on the inside clear of that outside lane. I think that's going to be key tonight, is we're going to be seeing a lot of that inside lane playing a big role as the caution is already out.
That's going to be Matthew Rodriguez and Kyle Hall, I do believe, over in, I believe that's turn 2.
Well, I suppose it did not take long for our in-race reporter here to get involved in an incident, and it seems we're starting off the night great.
Well, he said as soon as that green flag dropped, he was going to be scared. Oh, wow, looking back at it, like that truck just came out from underneath him, and I think that's something we're going, if we had channels into every single driver's radio communications, I think the one word that would be overused here tonight would be loose, because watching these guys in practice, they were loose going into the corner, they were loose in the center of the corner, they were loose coming off the corner. I mean, there's not a whole lot of grip for these rear tires to be able to sink their teeth into.
Oh yeah, I mean, these guys are going to have trouble getting to the gas all day. This is a fast short track. You know, this is a short track, but this is a quick one. One of the quicker ones that we have here on iRacing, and so you're carrying a lot of speed through these very long corners. It's going to be hard for these guys to keep the rear end underneath them while keeping the lap times up, because the more throttle you have, the faster you go, but at the same time, the bigger risk it is to you spinning out and causing an incident.
You bring up a good point, too, with the fact that this is a very fast racetrack to get around. 200 laps on tap here tonight. It takes them roughly between 17 to 18 seconds to complete a lap under green, but even under caution, it only takes them about half a minute to complete a lap under pacing. So, you know, these laps, they're going to tick away whether we're on the green flag or under the yellow flag.
Yeah, so these guys, you know, as much as they look at that lap time number and go, hey, 200 laps, plenty of time to get things done, at the same time, you got to realize that how many of these laps are going to be under caution, and I think some guys might already be realizing that. and they want to get as much track position as early as possible, and in turn, that's going to cause some more cautions.
Here you see already doubling up with the 1 to green, lights out atop that iRacing pace truck. Cotto will choose the inside line once again here. Remember, he gets choice of when he wants to accelerate as soon as that pace truck hits pit road. Had a great jump at the initial start of this race. We'll see if we can get another decent jump here on this first restart of the night. He does, and Ashton Lawson was right there with him.
Yeah, once again, we saw that outside lane fall back positions. It just really seems to struggle for them on these restarts to really get going, especially with where the leader goes in the middle of the corner. And we're going to be seeing a lot of guys make up spots and then immediately lose them the next restart.
Top 3 going to get single file. Battle will be side by side for 4th. Christopher Heller in the 11, DJ Stagner the 64. Heller will complete the pass. Just behind them, last week's winner, Zachary Henry, who is one of 4 drivers coming into tonight that is guaranteed locked in with race victories in participating in this season's playoffs.
Yeah, and obviously race victory, as we get another caution here tonight, is going to be the way you get yourself into these playoffs. And as we see Senzi and looks like the 29 and Nathan Jump there turned around in turns 1 and 2.
Yep, right down there on the apron. I don't think Jump was necessarily involved. I think he came to a stop to avoid making contact with the 92 of Sensi, who, leaving the scene of the accident, looks like that truck's fairly clean, so it may just have been a harmless solo spin. Surprising there, Sensi out of the gate having some problems. He was up inside the top 10 in speeds back during practice.
And as we kind of saw there, we saw a bit of a bump to the back bumper, and as much as this is a short track, and they always tell you, get the bump and runs in, that's a good way to pass. With how loose these guys are, I wonder how much of that is just going to immediately cause cautions like we see with this one.
That was Nathan Nixon, the 98, that got Michael Sensi from behind, so that would have been a battle just outside the top 10, around the 11th, 12th position. And that's another thing that we should kind of keep an eye on here, especially when we get closer to the end of this race. Drivers that are running up to the front that are running into late trouble, not going to be a whole lot of time for them to be able to mount comebacks, because officially 33 drivers did take the green flag. So you could be up inside the top 10 with 15 to go, get involved in a wreck, be outside the top 25, maybe get yourself back inside the top 20, but it's very unlikely you're going to get yourself back up to the position you were running at the time of your incident.
Yeah, and the one thing I wonder about tonight as well, we've got 200 laps around here. That's a long time, and I imagine we're going to at least need 1 pit stop on fuel, at least, to try and make it to the end of this race. And so while Josh Cottle has a massive advantage every single restart being the leader, at some point you have to ask the question on, is he going to need fuel? When does he pit? And when does he lose all the track position he's gained from qualifying?
Kyle Hall and Matthew Rodriguez, who were involved in the first caution, both fell a lap down when they were getting damage repaired on pit road during that caution period. Hall was the recipient of the free pass under this yellow, so we'll have 32 of our 33 trucks back on the lead lap once they go back green. A couple of drivers to highlight here tonight as far as the playoffs are concerned. We'll be keeping an eye on Elliot Henderson, Michael Sensi, who we saw involved in this, our latest caution, as well as Steven Sims and Matthew Rodriguez. Those 4 drivers in particular only have 14 points separating them. Henderson right now, as things stand, holds the final position to point his way into the playoffs. Sensi, Sims, and Rodriguez here tonight with the number of drivers that are taking the green flag in this race. If Henderson runs into trouble, they could capitalize and they could find themselves up in a playoff position in 2 weeks' time heading into Texas.
Yeah, and we've seen plenty of problems happen for guys at the front of the field, not only in races like this, but specifically Bristol. The last time we went to a short track here in this series, we saw all the leaders get disheveled.
Green flag about to come back out here. Cottle again gets a decent restart. Good job there by Ashton Lawson to be able to slot into second just ahead of Henderson. Got themselves a little bit better organized, the top 4 or 5 did, into single file. Then you've got Zachary Henry under fire from the 69 of Jacob Hayes.
And Jacob Hayes, another kind of short track driver here, looking to make his way up the field. We saw it with Josh Cottle, good short track guy, qualified on pole, but Jacob Hayes, not as great qualifying, looking to make his way up under green.
Behind Henry, you've got Hunter Brittle there in the 10. Played some strategy last time out at Montreal. Had a decent points day as well. Currently comes into tonight's event just outside of the playoffs, 17 points behind the cut line, so looking for what I believe would be back-to-back top 10 runs for him, as this battle for the 6th position will not go away. Hayes on the inside, Stagner on the outside, showing that Five Flags is a multi-groove racetrack. It's pretty wide when you go into the corner. It narrows up once you get off of 2 and 4, but these guys are doing a really good job of showing just how capable this track is of being able to have side-by-side racing.
Yeah, I think we're going to start seeing more side-by-side as the tires start to wear out some, because that bottom on the initial restarts and on fresh tires is just so much better. So right now these guys are really pinned down there, but we're seeing a good charge there from DJ Stagner around the top.
Gotta wonder too, I mean, it's the longer way around the racetrack for Stagner. How much is that going to play into his tires wearing down as opposed to the trucks on the inside line? Do you maybe save some tire running up there since you're not having as tight a turning radius?
Well, I believe the main problem here is the fact that these drivers are a bit loose, and whatever you can save by turning the wheel less is going to help, and the more speed you carry, the more loose you're going to be. That might really hurt his right rear tire wear over the run, running around the top versus the bottom.
Under fire from Zach Henry. Looks like Henry might clear him by the time they get into turn 1. Now Hunter Brittle going to follow in the tire tracks. The 64 just looking for a place in line. Might be able to do so in front of Hunter Madalinas. Like that will be the case. Oh, no!
Oh,
Contact
no!
there.
Here we go!
And right in front of traffic, cars, trucks scattering on the front straightaway to avoid Stagner. Oh, boy.
Well, it's begun, ladies and gentlemen. We thought we might have gotten a green flag run, but we're right back to where we started. Contact from Hunter Madalinas to the left rear quarter panel. DJ Stagner sends him around.
And we'll let you be the judge on whether the 64 was trying to force his way down in line or if Hunter Madalinas maybe just overshot the entry into the corner, tagging the 64 in the left rear quarter panel. I mean, that's the one problem with short track racing as well. There's two different sides of the story. Each driver has a different braking zone, lifting point, and more often than not, you end up, especially coming off the corner, having drivers want that same piece of real estate.
Well, the weird thing that we saw going into turn 3 is I expected Madalinas to enter low or DJ Stagner to cover low, but neither of them did. They both entered high into the corner. And when Madalinas saw the opening, he went low, but so did DJ Stagner. They just kind of met in the same place. It's just Hunter was a little bit quicker to it.
Stagner, who was at the time running in the 8th position, he's going to be restarting back outside of the top 25, somewhere around the 28th, 29th position as we work our third caution of the evening. I believe Kyle Hall's going to get the free pass yet again. He was 2 laps down after what happened during that green flag period. No, correction, it's actually Matthew Rodriguez who's going to get the lucky dog on this one. Matt Rod had fallen 4 laps down, so he'll now be -3. But we got the opportunity, bring up to date of the drivers at this point in time that we know are going to be advancing into the playoffs via race victories. Zach Henry's win last week locked him in. Nathan Jump, Christopher Heller, and the defending champion of the series, Jake Miller. We know that all of them will be competing for the championship when we eventually begin the playoffs in about 3 weeks' time. Now, Lewis Woodall, our Daytona winner, he is eligible, but there is a possibility that he mathematically could fall below the necessary points position to be eligible for the playoffs. So right now, he is holding the 5th seed, and if he has decent enough runs here tonight and in 2 weeks' time at Texas, he'll be locked in. And it looks like a couple of drivers also, points-wise, might be in pretty good shape, those being Hunter Madalinas, Brandon Barkuski, and RJ Williams. They are 60, 43, and 42 points, respectively, above that cut line. So we'll see if they're able to maintain that gap here tonight. I feel like here tonight, for those particular drivers, you're basically hoping that the track isn't going to put you in a difficult position when you get to Texas, because I feel like Texas is going to be more of a track where you can control your playoff destiny rather than here tonight. Tonight, I know it's not a super speedway, but I feel it's kind of a wild card race.
Well, we saw Bristol be a wild card race. We saw the kind of newcomer to the series, Nathan Jump, get a victory there at that event. And you never know what could happen at these places.
Green flag back in the air once again. Josh Cottle very good at these restarts, as we have seen. Leads Ashton Lawson. Christopher Heller trying to find his way to the bottom as he started on the outside of row 2. Elliot Henderson's going to get around him, and Jacob Hayes looks to fill that gap if the hole is there.
Yeah, it looks like we're seeing a bit better side-by-side racing every single restart that happens, as it seems to be that bottom lane isn't nearly as dominant as it was right at the beginning. Great battle here for the third position between Heller and Henderson.
Now, we've only had maybe about 8 trucks come to pit road since the start of this race. Most of them coming down to repair damage sustained during the course of the 3 cautions we've had. None of the drivers up here inside the top 20, top 25 have come to pit road, so they are now completing their 30th, 31st circuit on these tires. I gotta wonder what the different sensation is for these drivers when they go into turn 1 on 30-lap old tires as opposed to when they had fresh Goodyears at the initial start of this race.
Well, I'm looking at some of the lap times of some of our fastest drivers on track, and they seem to only be running about 1 to 2 tenths slower than their fastest lap time. They're still running about exactly the same as where they were right at the beginning, so far it looks like there hasn't been too much of a difference.
Heller continuing to hold strong on that outside line, side by side for 4th between himself and Jacob Hayes. And to your point, seeing a lot more double wide racing here on this run than we've seen in the previous runs. Brittle and Henry, they were side by side momentarily for 6th. Behind them, you've got Shane Nicewanger. He and Hunter Madalinas were side by side. Madalinas gonna go around off the nose of Nicewanger.
Our points leader turned around it down into turn 1 from the front straightaway. Careful not to run into any traffic as it goes by, but that'll be a big points hit for him if he can't find his way back up to the front.
We've seen, you talked about coming off of a road course race earlier on this season to Bristol. We had the Montreal race last week leading into tonight's race at Five Flags, and there were some hurt feelings earlier on this season at Long Beach, and we had a couple of hurt feelings last week at Montreal. I mentioned about the kind of strategic placing of short tracks after road courses. Here tonight, we may end up seeing a couple of rivalries either continue on or maybe begin heading into Texas next week. And when we consider the fact that the playoffs are not too far away, I don't want to say it, but there's the possibility that there could be some championship implications based off of what we see here tonight.
Oh, well, there's been plenty of championship implications all over this season. I mean, the large variety of tracks we've had so far, very unique tracks at that, stuff you don't see normally on other series schedules, has really thrown these drivers for a loop and pushed them to their limit, and it's created some very chaotic and out-of-place racing. I mean, you see the cream rise to the top for the most part. You know, our leaders have been some of the same leaders for most of this year, but every now and then they end up losing their footing here at these new circuits, and this doesn't seem to be any different tonight.
Rodriguez going to get the lucky dog under this caution, so he'll be at -2. Nathan Jump actually fell back quite a bit from this caution period to the previous caution period. He's now outside of the top 25, back in the 30th position, especially when you consider the fact that I mentioned 4 drivers, Heller, Jump, Miller, and Henry. They come into this race knowing that their victories lock them into the playoffs. I mean, that's got to be such a sense of relief, especially here tonight, because the last thing you want to do is come into a race like this in almost a must-win situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, all of them as well are pretty much above, you know, that line for the most part. Jake Miller, surprisingly, being one of the only ones below that top 10 in points before the playoffs. But that win, big help for making sure that you could just kind of go into these chaotic short track races or your kind of uncomfortable road course races and saying, you know, it doesn't really matter. I've already got the win in the bag.
Give credit to Elliot Henderson so far here tonight, has remained up inside of the top 5, top 3 pretty much for that matter. Coming into this race, the cutoff line driver holding on to that final playoff position. He's been able to keep the rest of his competition at bay. Michael Sensi had that spin earlier on. Matthew Rodriguez has had some issues tonight. Still off the lead lap, and we really haven't seen the 6 of Steven Sims up anywhere towards the front as of yet.
Well, as the race goes on, we're going to see plenty of drivers all over the place as the green flag heads out. And Henderson, with a very poor start that time around, lost 2 positions to the outside lane.
Was able to slot himself into 4th, has him stacked up behind, though. Henry to his top side, Brittle, kitty corner, and just behind him, the 11 of Christopher Heller. Double wide, about 2-3 rows deep. There's Gavin Fitzgerald, the 14, high, wide, and handsome on Shane Neiswanger. So this battling right now going on from 4th back to around 8th or 9th.
And completely different from what we saw earlier in the race. We're seeing a lot of moves made around the outside at this racetrack. We're not seeing guys try and cross over and get underneath. We're seeing guys deliberately take it to the high side to try and get around the driver in front.
We saw this race start in twilight. The lights have now come on here at this facility, so the track would be cooling down just a little bit with the nighttime conditions settling in. You got to wonder if maybe with that little bit of added grip, these drivers have the confidence to go up there to that second lane to make moves.
I believe that has to be the reasoning here because, I mean, the more grip you have, the faster you can go, and if you're pinching the guy down low, he can't go any faster. You got all that space on top to make as much speed as you can, and that seems to be working out for a lot of these guys.
Fitzgerald and Neiswanger continue to battle. Behind them, another good battle going on. Austin Moore in the 91 on the top side. Steve McLean in the 75 on the inside line. That's for the final spot inside of the top 10.
Yeah, and a good battle here at that. Ooh, as McLean gets a little bit loose there on the bottom side. We're not seeing that loose condition go away whatsoever, but the driver right behind them kind of waiting for this battle to settle out is Jake Miller. Bit of a poor qualifying performance heading into the event, but has made his way slowly up through the field. Actually only being beat by Austin Moore in terms of positions gained as he's watching him just in front. That's a driver we know has solid speed week to week, and he's looking to try and make his way up and keep himself up there in the points.
And Jake Miller, we saw go to victory lane a couple of weeks ago at Charlotte in that photo finish, and with that victory locks himself into the playoffs, looking to defend his championship title. Yeah, to your point, we didn't really see, he was one of the few drivers that didn't really replicate his qualifying time based off what we had seen as far as lap times laid down in practice, and cautions out. James Shiflett has gone around in the 28s. Like that was over in turn 1.
Possibly another front stretch into turn 1 incident here. It all seems to lead off turn 4 and then carries all the way down to turn 1 when we finally see the accident happen. Looking to see what happened this time by, but so far we've seen very little happen down the back straight for some reason. Not sure what about turn 4 is making these guys want to start wrecking each other, but it seems to keep happening down here right in front of the fans.
Been a little gap whack involved, but looked like Shiflett made some door-to-door contact with our broadcast colleague Kyle Lawrence Short. Would have been for roughly around the 19th position. Just the way the 28 truck jumped, I believe there was some gap whack probably involved there.
Yeah, you kind of hate to see that. I mean, just a slight bit of door contact sends Shiflett around. Probably shouldn't have sent him around, but, you know, kind of the things we enjoy here on the surface. You love and hate it at the same time, depending on what side of it you're on. But as for James Shiflett, he's not going to be enjoying it this time by.
Had a couple of our front runners come down pit road, most notably 37 of Elliot Henderson, giving up a spot inside of the top 5 to come down pit lane. I think it was a 4-tire stop with the 37. The bad news for him, though, is he's going to be starting back outside the top 20. Right now, he's slated to roll off the grid in the 24th position. And as of right now, I believe the only driver that we've seen run into trouble tonight that's been able to make forward progress since their incident is Michael Sensi. He's been able to work his way up to the 13th position, but DJ Stagner has kind of still been mired back in traffic. Some other drivers as well that we've seen be involved in some of our early cautions, they've not really been able to mount any kind of a comeback at this point in time.
But I would like to point out something that's been interesting so far with the race tonight. Unlike what we kind of saw at Bristol earlier this year, where we'd get maybe a few laps in and then there'd be a big wreck that collects a bunch of cars, and then once everybody whittles out, we get the green flag run. We've been seeing some solid, decent runs for a good period of time, you know, maybe anywhere from 8 to 12 laps or so. And that's enough time that newer tires could make a difference later on in this race, to the point where Elliott Henderson here, who pit at this point, could possibly try and gamble on some track position if he can make it to the finish on fuel, while all the leaders might have some issues.
It's kind of interesting that Henderson's the one that plays the gamble card here, with him being the one trying to defend for that final playoff position. You would think that maybe some of the drivers trying to take that slot from him would be trying to maybe roll the dice on strategy, but green flag back in the air. We are now a quarter of the way through this race. Josh Cottle has kept everyone in his rearview mirror, and we may have a pretty good battle for second place brewing, as Ashton Lawson looks in his rearview mirror and has Jacob Hayes right on his back bumper.
Well, I was saying earlier, Jacob Hayes, good short track driver here, looking to make his way up through the field. Like I said, as the caution comes out once again, the short track driver not having the time that he needs to get to the front.
Yellow flag for the yellow truck of Brett Kincott. As he went around on the front straightaway, his truck came to rest down against the inside wall heading into turn 1. Oh, Henderson, I believe, was the one that tagged him, trying to make his way up back through the field.
I believe it might be interesting to kind of look at this a little closer, because I mean, Elliott was definitely evolved from what I'm seeing from our cameras over here, but as we're going to see it on the live view, we see Kincott there on the bottom, Henderson there making a kind of crossover, but all of a sudden Kincott gets loose with no contact whatsoever, and then Elliott gets involved because of it.
Doesn't look like too bad of contact there for Elliott Henderson, but yeah, I mean, Kincott, I believe, yeah, he had actually just come to pit road with fresh tires. So I almost wonder if it might be the transition. I was talking earlier about restarting on old tires. Well, you do a couple of restarts on old tires, you're used to what the truck feels like. All of a sudden, you've got fresh stickers on there, and it's a little bit slicker than you're expecting when you come through the corners.
Yeah, and the fall off on the lap times seemed to be low enough that pretty much the only difference between brand new tires and older tires at this point is the temperature. And so you come down pit road, those tires are freezing. You have very little grip, and that seems to be the issue for Kincott here as he comes off of turn 4. You just see the truck kind of snap around on him, lacking that rear end grip from possibly just some cold tires.
Big break there for James Shiflett, who was involved in our last yellow flag. He's the recipient of the lucky dog, so we'll have 29 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green. We have had one departure from the race. That's Kyle Hall, so he'll get credited for 33rd here this evening. Tell you what, I think these drivers after tonight, they're going to welcome that Labor Day weekend off week coming up here before they prepare themselves for the regular season finale at Texas, because I think even these race leaders, they're looking like the trucks are steady, at least from the spectator point of view, but I'll bet if you looked inside the cockpit of every one of these trucks when they head into the corner, those hands are busy.
Yeah, the difference between inside to outside is always so funny. I love watching that stuff at plate races. You see the cars move around so calmly, but inside the cockpit you're screaming, and I'm sure there's kind of the same thing here tonight. All these guys all over the place in the cockpit, but all you see is the truck just moves slightly over it. Gonna be interesting to see who can keep control of that through this entire race.
So one thing we haven't addressed here, we've been talking about the battle for playoff positions points-wise, but Josh Cottle, he comes into this race 19th in points. If he's able to coast-to-coast pole to win, he more than likely would jump up into a playoff position, which would then move that cut line down and maybe have Elliott Henderson outside of the playoffs heading into Texas. So we'll keep tabs on that during the course of the night, as up to this point it's looked like nobody has had anything for the 32.
Yeah, it seems to have been him versus the field so far tonight, and like you're saying, yeah, if he gets the win, that would knock out one of the drivers currently in on points. You know, and the thing with Josh Cottle so far this year is that he's had some good speed at plenty of the races so far this year, but the few races that he had issues, it really relegated to him to an extremely poor finishing position. It's why he's so far down in the points.
Second place, Hunter Brittle on the top side there. Well, he is going to be able to stay to the right rear quarter panel. I thought maybe Lawson would have him cleared off of 2, but Brittle hanging tough on that outside line. Really wide there off of 4, might have brushed the outside safer barrier.
He's really pushing that truck to the limit on the outside lane. Ashton Lawson will be clear out of turn 2 this time by, and Jacob Hayes is just hoping that Hunter Brittle gets out of his way, because any hang-ups here is going to really stop him from advancing up to the second position.
Drives it deep into turn 1. Going to complete the pass there through the center of the corner. Maybe a little bump from Hunter Brittle off of turn 2, but clear for P3 is the 69 truck. He'll try and reel in Ashton Lawson as Josh Cottle continues to show the way. He's about to deal with a slower truck just ahead of him. Not certain exactly who that is. That Ryan Potter, I think, maybe in the 60.
I mean, there's been plenty of drivers involved in incidents so far tonight. Would not surprise me here to see this driver possibly involved in an incident under green flag that just didn't bring out a caution while he's right in front of the leader. So could be some problems here for the field if he gets there anytime soon.
You could be absolutely correct on that. He's running far enough back that it looks like he would have had something happen that slowed him enough to be back now in the clutches of going a lap down to green flag conditions, but not necessarily have the caution flag fly. A couple of drivers keeping tabs on, working their way back up towards the front of the field.
Turn 2, drivers all over the place. We saw Kyle Short on the broadcast there get real sideways with almost 3 wide through turns 1 and 2.
Gathers it back up, but a lot of track position loss there. Back to the 27th spot goes Kyle Lawrence Short.
Seems to be plenty of action here tonight, whether it be causing a caution or not causing a caution. Trucks and drivers are all over the place.
That's why fans love going to the short tracks, because there's always action no matter where you look, at the front, middle of the pack, even at the rear of the field, as battle for third place maybe closing up between Hayes and Brittle. Lawson has gapped himself from this third place battle, so he's in his own zip code. Josh Cottle, looking at the lap times, just a tick quicker Ashton Lawson the last couple of laps. Not by much, a couple hundredths perhaps. But he is slowly starting to reel the 32 truck, and I almost wonder if maybe that could have been the 32 dealing with aero tightness for the first time here tonight, with the fact that the 60 of Ryan Potter is running just ahead.
Well, you also have to consider the fact as well is that, you know, Josh Cottle started out front every single restart, and so he's pretty much running those blazing lap times right at the very beginning just to make sure nobody gets close enough to him to bump him out of the way. And that could really hurt the tires, as so far we're starting to actually get a green flag run. As that driver in front of him very loose. Ryan Potter's got to be careful here. The leaders are coming.
Boy, there's some good battling going on just outside the top 10. That's where your fresh tires are at. Hunter Madalinas trying to make his way through traffic. Just completed a pass on Nathan Nixon. You've also got DJ Stagner, Lewis Woodall, and Elliot Henderson back in this mix. All drivers trying to make their way back up inside of the top 10.
And making some very slow but steady progress at that. You know, we're starting to see it kind of single file out. We're not seeing a lot of passes further towards the front. I mean, this right here, what we're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is the first battle on the racetrack at the moment. It's deep in the pack right now. And all these drivers are just kind of saving their stuff, trying to get a green flag run in, because so far I imagine a lot of them are probably getting tired of all the cautions.
Ooh, Steven Sims, big save there. It started from turn 2 exit, and the fishtail ended over into the entrance of turn 3. Good job by Elliot Henderson and company to give him the space necessary to hang on to that number 6. As this again continues to be battled just inside of the top 20. A couple of these drivers have fresh tires. Most of these drivers still running on the tires they started this race with. I mean, we're looking at right now our top 12 at least, and then about a half dozen drivers further back that are running now their almost 80th lap on these set of tires.
Well, one thing I'm starting to look at right now is just behind Gavin Fitzgerald is the stack-up train that's starting to develop. Jake Miller has been trying to get around him the last few laps, but has seemed to struggle, and that's brought in both Zach Henry and Christopher Heller into this battle. And now it's a train of about 4 cars right on top of this 6th-place driver looking to make the move on him.
You gotta wonder at what point do you start to use the bumper. It's kind of a driver's Morse code. One bump, hey, I'm here. Second bump, this is your last chance. And usually you don't get time to be able to recover from the third bump.
Yeah, well, I know Jake Miller to be an aggressive driver in seasons past. Hasn't seemed to really change as he makes a big move up the inside. Not going to get the run off, but if he can hold it to the inside, which he does, should be able to try and make the move out of turn 4. But that outside lane with a big charge from Fitzgerald seems to really be holding on for him, but I don't know how much longer he can hold on to this.
Just a little contact exchange there a couple of times between the 4 and the 14. Zachary Henry back here, Christopher Heller. I mean, what do you do? Which line do you run? Because it looks like the 4 gets a great entry, but then the 14's able to charge back on the top side on corner exit. So neither line is really able to gain an advantage.
I think I'm starting to see the trend develop as well with the lines. It seems like turns 3 and 4, that outside lane is much better than the bottom, but with Fitzgerald getting into the wall, it doesn't seem the outside lane was that good that time by. That allows Zachary Henry to get up the inside, where I believe the bottom is better in turns 1 and 2.
Fitzgerald now with that momentum lost, getting into the outside wall off of 4, loses the spot to Miller, will lose the spot to Henry, and now under fire from Christopher Heller in the 11. 14 starting to go backwards. And, you know, we mentioned about the fact with short track racing, usually you don't have to have the prettiest truck to be able to be competitive, but just how much would that right side damage, and we see a little bit of damage there as well on the right side of the splitter, the right rear quarter panel as well, does that affect the handling of the truck in any way?
Well, while aerodynamics is not really a question, you know, right now officials are at Darlington Raceway, and I can guarantee you there's been plenty of times when not only I and everybody else have hit the wall as Fitzgerald is really struggling with the handling on that vehicle. That damage can really make that truck tight if it's on the right front or loose on the right rear. And that could be what we're seeing right now. He's getting a little bit tight on entry, over driving it to try and get it pointed, and then getting really loose on corner exit as Madalinas has started to climb his way up through the field.
Yeah, Hunter Madalinas, if he completes this pass around Gavin Fitzgerald, he will have broke his way back up inside the top 10 since his spin earlier on in this race. Nice comeback run there for the points leader, DJ Stagner, who also had some early issues just behind him as well in the 64. So it's taken a pretty long green flag run here, roughly about 38 laps this green flag run has been, but they've shown they've got good trucks to be able to work their way through traffic as some contact between Stagner and Fitzgerald through 3 and 4.
I was just about to say, it's starting to look like a really good pit call here for Elliot Henderson, where his tires should be much newer than all of his competitors in front of him. Well, I say that, but the caution comes out and completely defeats that. It's Kyle Short here down on the front straightaway.
We've seen a lot of drivers, when they have incidents on the front stretch, their trucks come to a stop in a rather precarious area, either facing back into traffic, or in the case there of Kyle Short, not able to back up with oncoming traffic and not able to go forward because there's only maybe a couple of yards and you would hit the inside pit wall.
We're seeing everybody struggle to negotiate that vehicle as Kyle finally tows it off the racetrack to allow the field to roll by, but this has really thrown a wrench in everybody's plan as now for sure the tires have fallen off. These drivers were starting to run 18-second lap times, and sure enough, as of right now, our leaders are starting to come down pit road for some fresh tires.
Turn 4 has been a bit of a trouble spot here tonight for drivers. Kyle Short, the most recent victim, getting loose off of that corner. We've seen a few drivers have that problem here tonight, and I don't expect the trend's going to change as the run continues on.
You know, what I wonder about that wreck too is he got loose very late out of the corner. Like, by that point, you might as well classify that the straightaway. That was a very weird spot for the truck to come out from underneath him. So to have that vehicle that late in the corner get loose could spell trouble for some of these other drivers if that's what they're dealing with tonight.
As you mentioned, most of the leaders coming down pit road here, they had almost eclipsed 95 laps on their set of Goodyears. Hunter Madalinas, DJ Stagner, they elect to stay out since they had both been to pit road earlier on after being involved in 2 of our now 7 cautions this evening. So they're going to restart in first and second. Cottle winning the battle off pit road in third. And you're right, that, well, even the fact of the timing of that caution still worked out to the pit strategy of Elliott Henderson, because he came down pit road with everybody and he was able, I believe, to only take fuel on that 37. So he's going to restart in the 4th position. Consider the fact that he was, what, 5th or 6th when he came to pit road. He's now up in 4th, so not a whole lot has changed. He's still back up where he was prior to pulling off the early pit strategy.
Yeah, my question to him and at least the 2 drivers that stayed out in front of all of our previous leaders is, where are their tires and lap time at? Because they were deep in the pack, and so their lap times ended up actually being slower than our leaders by the end of that run, despite having newer tires. The question is, now with some better track position, where are they going to end up in terms of pace? Because Elliott Henderson stuck around the outside, has a truck with older tires in front of him, but so does Josh Cottle on those brand new tires.
But is this what you have to do to try and stop that 32 from winning here tonight? I mean, we've already kind of dubbed him as the favorite this evening based on the number of laps he's led, the pole position that he gained. You want to put him back in traffic.
Madalinas got very loose there. Sorry to cut you off, but on the restart, he went very early and nearly lost it out of turn 4.
Able to block the inside line here as he and Stagner trying to box the 32 of Cottle in on that inside line. Watch the top line there, the bright green 37 of Elliott Henderson. If he's able to get a run, he might be able to swing to the outside of Josh Cottle in a battle for third.
Seems to be Elliott struggling just a little bit on that high side, and he's got DJ Stagner in front of him also on some old tires. This bottom lane's going to be rolling right now,
man,
as drivers are getting closer and closer to each other as they come around these corners.
Madalinas tried to slam the door on Josh Cottle. Cottle was having none of it. Almost had the 9 around off someone's nose off turn 4 for the second time tonight. But Cottle now back to the lead. Lawson will move into second. Madalinas now falls back into the clutches of Jacob Hayes. That battle's over as quickly as it started. Move Hayes to third.
Yeah, now is when it gets interesting, because on the previous run, Josh Cottle had control of the restarts every time. He could pace himself how he wanted, explaining his dominance in that first part of the race. But now Ashton Lawson, Jacob Hayes finally has better track position, and they don't have to work around so many people and burn up their tires. Where are they going to be compared to our leader?
Shane Neiswanger now up into the top 5 in 4th with Hunter Brittle in that 5th position. We've seen 2 different types of racing here tonight so far, Alex. We saw the early cautions, but we also saw that near 40-lap green flag run. Now into the second half of this race, you've got to wonder how drivers are going to strategize, potentially maybe having to come to pit road at least one more time for fuel. I mean, it's got to be go time, I would assume, from here on out, but you can't time when a caution might come out.
No, you cannot time it at all. I don't believe any of these leaders, unless we get another big green flag run, are going to be coming down pit road at any point towards the end of this race, because, I mean, we saw Madalina stay in front for a few
DJ
laps.
Stagner!
Oh, no, DJ Stagner not going to bring out a caution as he gets it going again. Incredible save from DJ Stagner, but that is going to hurt him in terms of track position.
He was already out of shape there coming off of turn 2 and stacked him up behind him. I believe it was the 91 of Austin Moore that got him, spun him around the infield grass. But to your point, amazingly, no caution coming out for that incident, especially with oncoming traffic. So we dodge a caution flag there. Stagner drops back to the 18th position. And don't look now, but Cottle, for the first time tonight, has trucks on his back bumper. Ashton Lawson, Jacob Hayes, they are right there.
Oh, but I just saw Fitzgerald get turned around out of turn 4. The caution is out, and it's a big stack up. Heller, Henderson, Senzi, and more all involved in this wreck.
And there was another truck that entered in late that made contact with the front end of Elliot Henderson. Look out, leaders! My goodness, is Henderson trying to get that truck turned back around. That was your top 5 that were just making their way out of turn 4. We got another truck that stopped in the front straightaway. That's the 75 of Steve McLean.
All right, so this is going to be an interesting one. We're starting to hear some chatter over the radio. See, the biggest wreck we've had tonight involved a lot of drivers, and there's going to be a lot of language going on. Might want to look at Fitzgerald, the driver furthest up in the order that we saw involved in the incident, because his perspective may explain why we had this accident here. So we see him get into the back bumper of Madalinas, and oh no, he got tagged by the 91 Austin Moore, and that just collected everybody behind them.
14 popping off of the outside wall back into traffic. Just no reaction time available for, I believe that was the 11 of Christopher Heller. He then further up on the front straightaway gathered up the 75 of Steve McLean and the 13 of Lewis Woodall, as we see with the onboard here with the Bass Pro Shops number 11. Trying to pinpoint who that driver was that had the late hit on the 37 of Henderson.
I believe that might have been the 71, Aaron McEachern, who kind of got into him right after the wreck was over, kind of tagged himself up against the outside wall. But yeah, right there, Austin Moore contact. Gavin Fitzgerald kind of overcorrects. Senzi gets into Henderson, and in comes the 71 to plow into Senzi there in the outside wall. Just drivers stacking up like crazy, and it's gonna leave a lot of damaged trucks here, and gonna end up like another short track race on your local Saturday night.
Yeah, the other truck that got Henderson was the 61 of Chris White. So about 7-8 trucks involved in this one. To your point, Alex, the biggest wreck we've had so far tonight. But I think we're going to see that as a trend here this evening as well. The closer we get to the end of this race, drivers are going to be less willing to lift off the throttle when they see a space to be able to pick up positions with a wreck up ahead. They're probably going to go for it.
Well, I mean, that might be one of the best ways to gain track position tonight, is just avoid the wreck. You know, you get something like that where that many drivers get involved and you were further in the back. Well, now you just gained about 8 positions just from that alone. So, hey, there's a strategy behind just sitting in the back and waiting for everybody to wreck out, because we saw it come to fruition at Bristol where almost the entire field was damaged. And who's to say that in these last 90 or so laps it might not happen again?
Well, a bad night. Going to go worse for Elliot Henderson involved in that wreck. He's now 4 laps down, getting damage repaired on pit lane. And Cottle back out in front here for this restart. And as we mentioned, if Cottle wins here tonight, he could move into a playoff position, and that would move Elliot Henderson out below the playoff cut line heading into Texas in 2 weeks. So we knew this was going to be a wild card type race just in the racing alone. Little did we know it was going to play a huge factor into what the point scenarios would look like as far as playoff positions in 2 weeks' time.
I'm seeing a little bit of contact there, Nathan Nixon and Madalinas on our cameras, but the one thing we didn't talk about on the restart, but I'm sure you all saw, was Jacob Hayes take the second position away from Ashton Lawson, and now we've got some 2 short track experts at the front of the field, and looks like Jacob Hayes is not letting Cottle get very far away, as he is running him down and making sure he stays as close to that rear bumper as possible.
Yeah, if you're Elliot Henderson, I think you're probably the biggest Jacob Hayes fan out there right now, right? I mean, Hayes with a limited number of starts here this season, certainly a win would not put him in the playoffs, so if he can keep the 32 out of victory lane, that would keep Elliot Henderson's chances alive.
Yeah, Elliot Henderson, really struggled tonight. Now he's kind of pretty much out of the race by this point. But you also have to consider some of the other drivers in the point standings and where they end up after this race is over. I don't believe RJ Williams has attended this race. He's further up in the point standings. He does not have a win. Brandon Burkuski did not start this race event. He will finish in the 34th spot with no laps taken. That's 2 drivers ahead of him in the point standings that are not going to end up taking this race on points. So if Elliott gets himself back going and at least tries to get some points out of this, there might be something to talk about.
Yeah, and if Cottle doesn't win here tonight, you've got a couple of drivers that were within the striking distance of Elliott Henderson to take that final spot on points, only 6 points back, where the drivers Michael Sensi and Steven Sims. Right now, Sensi's up in the 13th position. Sims is running in 21st. Both of them more than 6 positions ahead of the 37.
That's the real problem is with this wreck, you know, all these other drivers have to do is just not get themselves involved in incidents and they will gain significant points on that cut line. And that's kind of the gamble we have at short tracks is you never know when a wreck's going to happen, but oh boy, I've been looking at this lead this entire time and every single time I look away and look back, it seems like Jacob Hayes gets closer and closer to that rear bumper. And especially through turns 3 and 4 seems to be the best spot there for Jacob Hayes as he always seems to get a good run down into turn 1.
And I feel like they may have company sooner rather than later because Hunter Madalinas, he is flying through the field. He just recently got around Zachary Henry. He's now to the top side on Shane Neiswanger, trying to break his way back up into the top 5. I mean, it seems like wherever he wants to put that truck, it is working for him.
I believe he may have made a pit stop because remember he stayed out on one of our previous cautions at around lap 90 and he fell back very quickly, so I imagine he had to have taken tires to at least try and regain some of the track position he was doomed to lose from that point, and it seems to be these tires are working out for him as the green flag runs have been long enough for him to capitalize up the inside of Hunter Brittle for the 4th position. Madalinas is rolling, ladies and gentlemen.
You would be correct on that fresh tire call. He has about 16 lap fresher Goodyears than the rest of the drivers up inside of the top 5 as looks like he'll complete the pass here into turn 1 on Hunter Brittle, move him up to 4th, and now he's eyeing the top trio.
Yeah, but this is going to be a tough pass even on those newer tires. I mean, these drivers have been up front all day. There's a reason why they've been up front. They've got some good speed. It's very easy to shred the tires here with how loose these drivers have been. Madalinas is going to have quite the job ahead of him, but he's definitely got the pace for it.
That's interesting. We were talking about that quartet of drivers that at this point are locked in through their race victories. We have yet to have a multi-time winner that is locked into the playoffs. So you look at someone like the 12 of Zach Henry running right now in the 7th position, trying to take 6th away from Shane Neiswanger. You've got Jake Miller not too far back in that 9th position. Could be some really good momentum for any of our former winners if they can head into the playoffs with the bonus points for being a 2-time winner here during the regular season.
With a bit of a bump there from Madalinas, he's going to get his way underneath and past Ashton Lawson for the 3rd position. These 2 short track guys got to start worrying because this points leader is coming back towards the front of the field, and he wants to try and extend that points lead.
So Madalinas, with having the advantage on tires, if he ends up getting to the race lead and say we have a couple more cautions between now and the end of this race, has he made his last pit stop of the day? If he gets up to the front, does he just keep that track position from now to the checkered flag?
Well, I think by this point in the run, if we were to get a caution within the next 5 to 10 laps, I imagine almost everybody's going to come down pit road. The pace is slowed down enough to warrant getting new tires. The field has seen what Madalinas can do on some fresh rubber, and now it's no longer a question of try and get track position as much as you can because it seems to be the wrecks have dwindled out. We are at the green flag racing, and tires are now going to make a difference.
Elliott Henderson has returned to the track. He just picked up a spot from 31st to 30th. Fitzgerald still sits on pit road getting damage repaired. Looks like it's been a bad night if your name is Kyle. Kyle Lawrence Short, he's out of the race in 32nd, and we already documented Kyle Hall out of the race much earlier on in tonight's event. Looks like we've got 30 trucks that are still running. But with the, we got a caution now, so that might change. I was going to say we had 19 on the lead lap, but this caution will have probably 20 on the lead lap, and I'm not necessarily certain what brought this caution flag out.
Well, I'd heard one of the drivers over the driver radio say turn 1, and when I looked over at the leaders approaching, the wreck seemed to ultimately happen out of turn 2. I believe it may have been Kyle Nogel who was the proprietor of it. But we'll have to see what happens down here in the turn 1, as we're going to end up looking, we're going to see Christopher Heller up the inside as they go across the start-finish line, and that may be one of the reasons we have this caution. Oh,
Yeah,
no!
3 wide. 3 wide going into turn 1.
Yeah, Rodriguez gets in there very deep, or at the same time, Kyle Nogel running the corner very high, gets tagged in the left rear quarter. And even though he didn't ultimately spin out, I suppose he ran slow enough on the racetrack and got sideways enough to end up bringing out the caution.
These drivers were all battling for around the 24th position, 1 lap down, but you got to remember that even though we've kind of focused our attention on the front of the field, the top 10, there are still battles going on the racetrack, whether they be on the lead lap or -1 to the leaders, trying to pick up every position possible.
I'm looking to see what we may have gotten in terms of pit stops, but I don't believe any of the leaders came in from what I'm seeing. So we're not seeing the pit strategy like I kind of expected, but we might see some drivers kind of pull a Madalena-style strategy further in the back on some newer tires, climb their way up through the field, because it didn't seem to take Madalenas that much time to do so.
Highest driver on the running order that I believe came to pit road was last week's winner, Zach Henry. It was around the 7th or 8th position, I do believe, and he came down pit road along with Nathan Nixon, Michael Sensi, Ross Brockman, and Lewis Woodall. So they took on a fresh set of tires. They'll be restarting from 15th position back to around 19th. And we saw Madalenas be able to work his way through the field with fresh tires, so we'll see what the 12's able to do. I mean, you're already locked into the playoffs with the victory last week at Montreal. Why not take a gamble like this?
Yeah, you might as well. He's been a little bit off on speed tonight. You know, he's been in the top 10 quick enough to at least be in the question if things get a little bit chaotic, but why not try and take a bit of a gamble, utilize the speed that you have to run in the top 10, put yourself on newer tires, and give yourself the speed to run in the first position?
Green flag set to come back out here for Josh Cottle. Pulls up in front of Jacob Hayes, who got an equally good restart. He'll slot into the 2nd position. Keep an eye on Hunter Madalenas there in that 3rd spot. Still has the tire advantage, but those pacing laps gave a little bit of an opportunity for the tires to cool down for the 32 and the 69.
I was noticing there towards the end of the run as well that Madalenas was kind of slowing down and equaling to pace of our front runners. You know, as much as you saw moments where his tires seemed a lot better, he didn't seem to consistently be running much faster lap times than our leaders. And with that heat cycle through the tires under caution, I'm not sure how much more pace he has by this point.
Great run here tonight by Austin Moore in that 91 right now in a battle with Jake Miller and Brent Kincott. That's for 7th. Good comeback run there for Brent. I mean, the last time we saw him, he was facing the wrong way over in turn 1, and the caution's out again. It's Nathan Nixon, the 98. Looks like that was just down around near the entrance of pit road.
Yeah, I believe entering turn 3. Gonna have to see what ended up occurring there with Nathan Nixon. Saw it on our own personal cameras up here, and ends up bringing out the caution. But we've got another incident, ladies and gentlemen. Are we gonna start going back to caution after caution? This strategy to not pit this last time by may be the call that ends up winning these leaders the race.
Usually, when it comes to short track racing, if you see a driver make contact with another driver's back bumper, it's the truck in front that goes around. That was the opposite case in this one. Looks like Nathan Nixon drove it deep there behind the 22 of Michael Barbagelata, and he got so hard on the brakes that the back end of the truck just snapped and sent him around.
Well, we hadn't really seen it as much of an issue recently in the race, but we did talk about at the beginning that these drivers were running very loose in practice and were running very loose at the beginning of the race, But as the sun has gone down, the lights have turned on, it's gotten cool. We haven't seen as much of it, but it's still there inherently, and we're still seeing wrecks where drivers get very loose and spin out.
where they used to give that All-State Good Hands Award? I think Matt Doer, with what he was able to do right there, he should get that award. I mean, that thing was flat loose going into the corner, and somehow he was able to snap the truck back to the right to avoid T-boning the 98 of Nathan Nixon.
And some fantastic wreck dodging is what you're going to need tonight to get yourself a good finishing position. We've seen wrecks up and down the field tonight. Anywhere from inside the top 10 to the back of the field, you are not safe anywhere here on this racetrack.
Believe Steven Sims should be the recipient of the lucky dog, and why that would be important is he'd be back on the lead lap, and he was one of a couple drivers that was just below the playoff cut line coming into tonight's race. As things stand right now, the question mark of whether Cottle's win tonight would put him in the playoffs, but Cottle currently is in a position to maybe go into the postseason, and Michael Sensi's in a position right now to maybe point his way into the point season. At 92 has mounted a good comeback there, up in the 8th position for this upcoming restart. But now, you talked about the possibility of us trending in the direction of cautions, breeding cautions, the later we get into this race, closer we get to that checkered flag. If you're Jacob Hayes, Ashton Lewis, Shane Neiswanger, if you're these drivers back here, just how much pressure is there on you now to take the fight to the 32 of Josh Cottle, not knowing how many more restarts you're going to have?
Well, I know at least for Jacob Hayes, he's been trying to take the fight to him so far this entire night since he's gotten up into the 2nd position. He's been having fantastic restarts, running right on the rear bumper. That's a driver I'm looking at to try and take the fight to him and take the lead away. But for those of you who were attentive, you might have noticed a lot of our front runners actually taken to the pit lane to get some tires. We got the field mixed up a little bit.
Yeah, Madalinas, Miller, Moore, Stagner, they were all on pit road. They'll restart back from the 14th position to around 18th. And Zachary Henry, who gained pit road the lap or the caution prior, he's made his way already up to the 6th position. So the tire games are taking place here, closing in on 50 laps to go.
Well, we'd seen right there Ashton Lawson take the 2nd spot away. Madalena struggling, getting loose out of turn 4. Oh, but Ross Brockman spun around in turn 2. Got some contact made by another driver. I missed who that might have been, but once again, we've got another wreck going on. It's starting to trend in that direction.
Rowdy Energy sponsored 52. I think he got some help possibly from the 18 of Ty Smith going into turn 1. Oh, and he actually got a little bit further contact. I believe it was from the 98 of Nathan Nixon. We've seen kind of a split 50-50 here tonight of drivers having harmless spins, very little contact, and then we've had the other 50%, some pretty hard licks, whether it be solo truck hits into the inside or outside wall, that multi-car pileup that we had off of turn 4. So we've had a little bit of everything so far here tonight. But now it's go time. We're heading into the final quarter of tonight's event.
And for some of these drivers who might have said that they were pretty much out of this race tonight, we saw in one of the big wrecks earlier on, I guess so far tonight's big one, with a lot of our fast running trucks, some of them are only a lap down, and if we keep getting cautions like this, we may see them find their way back onto the lead lap and gaining a bunch of track position. One of them notably being Eric Kepf, who is not too much further ahead of the cut line than Elliot Henderson is, and might need to watch his points a little bit. And if he could find his way back on the lead lap to gain some points, that could be crucial for his season.
Yeah, I mean, there's been already a lot of comeback stories here in just the first 150 laps. Brett Kincott, he's actually just now hitting pit road, but he was up inside of the top 10 after we had seen him have a spin on the front straightaway. Michael Sensi had a spin very early on in the going of this one. He's up in the 7th position. James Shiflett, the 28 car, he's going to be rolling off 10th on this upcoming restart. We saw him have the contact with Kyle Lawrence Short on the front straightaway going into turn 1. He's been able to mount a comeback after getting a free pass very early on in this race. So a lot of drivers have done a great job of just sticking it out, biding their time, taking the cautions when they're able to, and they're up inside the top 10, top 15, when back in the first half of this race, they were outside the top 20.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what happens here at these short tracks. You know, notably in front of Shiflett as well, you got Woodall and Barber Gelato. Woodall, one of the ones that has the win, needs to try and get himself higher in the point standings to make sure he could get himself into the playoffs with that win. So this is another crucial playoff implication moment for Lewis Woodall's day.
Getting doubled up here. Cottle and Hayes again going to be the front row. Lawson and Neiswanger, row 2. Hunter Brittle and Zach Henry, they're in row 3. Michael Sensi in 7th. Michael Barbagelata now up in that 8th position with Woodall and Shiflett, your top 10. Green flag set to come back out. And we are now... Oh! Neiswanger, what just happened to the 49?
A hard right-hand turn for that vehicle. I am beyond baffled as to what happened there, but he keeps rolling. We're still under green flag, but that caused a lot of drivers there to have some issues as they passed the driver ahead of them before they crossed the start-finish line.
I'm shocked that there's no caution. I'm shocked there wasn't a big wreck. My goodness, I don't know what happened, if that was possible equipment malfunction, if he just spun the tires, but that's about as straight a right-hand turn as you can make.
The most confusing part about that is he immediately got rolling again, so if it was an equipment failure, it was a very quick one as he immediately got it going once again. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a race to get going, and I'm looking at Zachary Henry looking up the inside of Hunter Brittle for, I believe, the 4th position. Reminder, he pit not too long ago. We haven't had too many green flag laps on these tires for the drivers who pit, and he's making his way forward, could be a threat for the victory.
Yeah, Zachary Henry in that 12, Michael Sensi, the green 92 just behind him. They've got about 40 lap fresher tires than the top 3, and then you've got that Monster Energy number 9 of Header Manalinas. He's got about 50 lap fresher tires than the top 3. So you've got a lot of varying tire strategies here just inside of the top 10.
And when you say 50, it depends how many of those 50 laps were actually under green flag racing conditions. A reminder, ladies and gentlemen, we've had so far 3 or 4 cautions back-to-back so far. Now we're finally getting back to our green flag runs, and these tires are starting to pay off for those who took the gamble.
Battle going to be for 6th position. Madalinas to the inside of Brittle. He'll move up and complete that pass on the back straightaway. Austin Moore. Now he'll jump to the inside of Brittle. That's going to be for 7th. Jake Miller right there as well, waiting to see what's going to happen. And DJ Stagner in that 64. He's just behind these guys, holding down that final spot inside the top 10.
Yeah, but he's got to make sure that nothing goes wrong with him. We've seen him in several incidents here tonight, but has recovered each and every time, holding on to a solid 10th place position after a 2nd place starting position. But I just cannot keep my eyes off the front of the field, because with the new tires coming forward and the top 3 closing in all on their own, it looks like we're about to get a 4-way battle for the lead, because Hayes has not backed off, Lawson has closed in the gap, and Zachary Henry on the new tires looks to be a good threat for the win.
If you're Zachary Henry, it's got to be difficult when you've got that fresh tire advantage, because if a caution's going to fly, you want the caution to come out when you're in an odd number position. That way you know you're guaranteed to be on the inside line. You don't want to get freight trained on the outside line if the caution comes out and you're in an even numbered position.
Well, that's the key. He wants to try and get past Ashton Lawson right now. It looks like he's trying to set that up, but not doing it quick enough because the field behind him is starting to close in as well. Senzi looking to get a solid run here in the top 5, finally get a good run in this season. We've seen him involved in several incidents, but time has run out. The caution is out, and I'm looking, cannot tell at the moment which driver that is. Looks to be Ty Smith. The 18 involved in an incident on the previous caution.
And he had a wreck. He might actually get the award for longest wreck here tonight. His wreck started all the way over in the exit of turn 4 and ended over in turn 1. The 6 of Steven Sims might have gotten hit late. It was, for the most part, just a solo truck spin that took the whole front straightaway for it to finally snap around.
Yeah, but Sims painfully involved in this incident as we see him get loose out of turn 4, correct it up, and tag Sims in the left rear. Sims was having a decent run earlier in this event, but as the race has gone on, his race has really gone downhill for him. And Ty Smith as well, another driver, just kind of trying to bide his time in the field, but seems to get involved in another incident late, and that truck is a crumpled piece of aluminum foil.
Well, as we mentioned, in these type of races, you can never give up. Well, we've seen so far tonight, Matthew Rodriguez involved in 2 incidents, but he's the recipient of the free pass. He'll be back on the lead lap. We'll have 21 drivers on the lead lap when we go back green.
Yeah, and also notably, I mentioned this earlier, in about one or two more cautions, we could see Eric Keft back on the lead lap, involved in a big incident earlier that got him trapped a lap down. In the battle with Matthew Dare for the next lucky dog for our next caution, that could be a crucial thing for the playoffs here because he wants to try and get as many points as possible before Texas.
Got Christopher Heller, who's not that far back of the lap down machines, might be able to get a free pass position here tonight as well. Drivers that I doubt will end up having enough cautions to be able to get back on the lead lap. Nathan Jump, Aaron McErnan. You've also got Nathan Nixon, multiple laps down. So they're just trying to see who's going to finish out 27th through 29th in this evening's race. There is the possibility that we could have some drivers involved in wrecks where they will not be able to continue, so they could pick up those positions and those points. But right now, it doesn't look like enough cautions would save them. We're looking here at the the 49 of Shane Neiswanger, the incident that he had on the restart, and I've looked back at this a couple of times. I still can't figure out what happened there, because if that was wheel spin, that's the most wheel spin I've ever seen a driver have.
Well, it looked to be from my perspective at least, that he got loose when he went to get to the gas. You see him kind of twitch sideways, and a big overcorrect there for Neiswanger. I believe that's what may have happened to him. Why we saw him immediately continue going, it was not an equipment failure. It was a slight driver error that really sent that vehicle around as we're back to green flag.
Josh Cottle again with another great restart, but this time Jacob Hayes was able to swing around Lawson, keep the second spot, and cautions out again. It's Ross Brockman. Boy, turn 1 has not been his friend. It's the second time we've seen him sideways in the center of 1 and 2.
Oh, it seems we're reaching that point in the race. We're getting drivers wrecking all over the place, and we're starting to approach the track position means everything portion of the event.
It's all take, no give at this point, as Brockman, I believe he just barely clipped the left rear quarter panel. Lewis Woodall as well. Woodall was spun around on the back straightaway. One thing I noticed that with that incident there with the 52, a lot of people take for granted that when these drivers are out there, it doesn't matter what track it is, usually it's not a smooth racing surface. It's very bumpy. And the 52, when he entered into the corner, that truck caught a little bit of air. You could see the front splitter bounce off the racing surface, so that certainly unsettled his truck.
Now we're going to be looking at the onboard. I'm not sure exactly which driver this is that missed the event here. Ooh, that was Neiswanger that got involved in the previous caution. So that driver right there, lucky to not get involved in another one, but kind of what you have to do around here. You just kind of slow down slow enough where you could finally avoid these incidents.
So we'll be in the vicinity. We'll be actually less than 25 laps to go when we go back green flag racing. Again, these drivers, they're going to have the off week next week for Labor Day weekend, Labor Day week. And then they'll be back at it in 2 weeks' time to set the playoff grid at the Texas Motor Speedway. That should be an interesting one because, we've talked about tires here tonight. Depending on what kind of green flag runs we have when we get to the Lone Star State, it may be a tire strategy race there.
Well, Texas Motor Speedway is always a very unique racetrack and mile and a half for these drivers, but I'm sure the uniqueness of Texas Motor Speedway is outweighed by the fact it's a mile and a half, and some of these drivers may just be wanting to go back to a regular mile and a half after the crazy variety we've had on the schedule so far this year.
Well, 5 Flags here in Pensacola, Florida, of course, the home to the Snowball Derby. And I don't know, we may end up having some snowball fights here when this race is over. We'll have to obviously wait and see about the fallout. Haven't really seen anybody, rubbing doors, sending messages so far here tonight. But usually that kind of stuff doesn't sprout up until this portion of the race. So there's still time.
Well, they best make sure if they start doing stuff that nobody makes it too obvious, as you kind of want to be a little discreet about it. But we're going to be going to green flag as Caudle with a good start. But for the first time ever, Jacob Hayes is going to hold it around the outside, not able to hang it into turn 1. As we see further in the back, almost 4 wide with Hack Henry, Madalinas, and others involved. Zachary Henry with a poor restart, but we're under caution once again.
It's Nathan Jump off of turn 2 in the number 29. 2 laps down in the 28th position, bringing out this, our 14th caution of the evening.
Okay, so not only now are we going to look at Nathan Jump, I also do want to end up looking at what happened to Zach Henry, as I was hearing Hunter Madalena say something about missing his braking point. I assume directed towards Zach Henry, who we saw the two of them very close to each other in that 4 wide moment. So we see Ty Smith, gets Nathan Jump slid just in front of him and did not lift for him whatsoever, did not like him sliding in front, sent him around, but at the same time got himself involved with that truck in the wall.
And then we'll show you in a few moments here what happened to the 12 of Zach Henry. Yeah, when you recall in the 4 wide there in the back straightaway, Henry almost was brushing the outside wall down the back straightaway. So we'll find out what exactly happened there.
So we see this is the second lap of the restart coming around through turns 1 and 2, I believe. Now this was a little bit after the incident, so now we're going to go back to the restart here in just a second, look at it once again. So we see Zach Henry there in the 4th position. Saw him with a good run around the outside Ashton Lawson out of turn 2. So this is the whole restart right here. We see Jacob Hayes up front right there, but Madalinas with a big send into turn 1 absolutely annihilated the back bumper of Zach Henry, and both of them lost track position from that.
That was a heck of a save, though, by Zach Henry. I mean, you could see the hands working in that truck to keep that thing from spinning around. Man, that's amazing that we didn't have an incident right up there at the front of the field through 1 and 2.
Yeah, we've seen plenty of times tonight where somebody gets a little bump to the back bumper and they completely lose the vehicle. So great save there from Zach Henry and great driving from the rest of the field to avoid that incident between those two. But now shuffled up the order a little bit. Senzi and Jake Miller are the 2 highest positioned on newer tires. Jake Miller having the newest of the bunch there with 39 laps on it. Senzi with 47, and our leaders with 89 laps on those tires.
So if we end up continuing to have these short spurts and then a caution, is that good or is that bad for drivers like Sensi, Miller, Moore, who have the fresher tires? I mean, can you take advantage of that grip on restarts, or do you need the long green flag run for those tires to come in?
Well, every single restart, you get that heat cycle. It really throws the tires for a loop. Until you get rolling, you're not going to find any extra grip. And once again, the 2 leaders jump away from the field. Hayes not able to battle into 1, but we see a good battle here between Senzi and Ashton Lawson. This could be crucial for Senzi if he can get the spot around the outside of turns 3 and 4.
Sensi sporting that left side damage on his 92, trying to see if he can get to the right rear quarter panel of Ashton Lawson. He's got the tire advantage, does Sensi, but Lawson, the shorter way around the track, is going to keep the 3rd spot. Now Austin Moore peeks his nose low to try and go for 4th.
Austin Moore having a good run so far tonight, getting his way into the top 5 and looks to have some good speed on those slightly fresher tires. He wants to try and get around Sensi here, take the fight to the top 3 if he can, but Jake Miller is looking to insert himself into this battle.
But we're starting to see if a driver loses just a bit of momentum, someone seems to be there to jump to inside or outside to take advantage, as we've got a wreck. Steve Sims in the 6 I believe, has gone around over in turn 1. He's facing the right direction now, but I think that maybe Shane Nicewonger might have gotten together.
That looked like a pretty big pileup down in turns 1 and 2. Might have been between Sims and Nicewonger, I believe, and collected a bunch of other drivers after that. And there was a whole lot of cars there, but surprisingly less contact than I expected.
Nicewonger was having a good run earlier on tonight, was up inside the top 5, and he left the scene of this accident with smoke pouring from underneath of his Chevy Silverado.
Nicewonger might officially be out of this race tonight. That is almost unrecoverable damage this late in the race. We're going to look at Rodriguez here, who had an extremely close call with these two drivers. Oh my goodness gracious. I don't know how he did not get involved bigger in that incident, because Shane Nicewonger was right on top of that vehicle.
And that truck just ahead of Matt Rod was the 60 of Ryan Potter. It was his late hit, I believe, that caused the engine issues for Shane Nicewonger. Rodriguez did get a little bit of contact. He had Ross Brockman in his left rear quarter panel there as drivers are trying to slice and dice their way through the entrance of turn 1 to avoid the 49.
This is just not something you do every day, though, to end up avoiding a wreck like that. I mean, he was boxed into a corner. To not get involved heavier in that incident was truly incredible, but ladies and gentlemen, this is just what happens here at a short track. You never know when the big one is going to come in, and for these leaders, I'm sure they're glad that those newer tires don't even have a chance to get up to them.
And with these cautions, more opportunities for drivers to pick up a couple more positions here in the finishing results. In the last 3 yellow flags, Matthew Durr, Kyle Nogel, and now Christopher Heller are back on the lead lap. 22 drivers in total, currently on the same lap as leader Josh Cottle, who's getting ready for another restart in a few moments, but now it's going to be with less than 10 laps to go.
I've also been seeing Jacob Hayes getting much better restarts every single time in the most recent cautions versus Josh Cottle. He's a couple times been on that right rear quarter panel heading down the front straightaway. If Jacob Hayes can get a good enough restart here, we might finally see an exchange for the lead between these two, because so far tonight, Josh Cottle has been unmatched.
And you gotta wonder what's going through the minds of Jacob Hayes. I mean, not running for a championship, out trophy hunting. Cottle, on the other hand, he's trying to maybe get himself a playoff position. So you got to wonder, how hard is the 32 going to defend? How aggressive is the 69 going to be to try and maybe move the 32 of Cottle out of the way for this checkered flag?
Once again, the leaders get away very good around that time. Senzi trying to battle Ashton Lawson, but we saw this worked out last time. But the caution is out once again. No time for anybody to make up track position.
And this, I believe, was Kyle Nogel in the 15. Second time he's gone around in turn 1. First time he had help. Let's see about this second time if he had any assistance. And he might have had a little bit of contact there going into the first corner. No, don't think so. I think it was a solo.
Well, we're going to be looking at the top-down view right here, and as he gets down into turn 1, might have just gotten on the brakes a little bit hard, turned it a little bit too much. Oh, nearly tagged another driver right there out of turn 2. But one of the drivers that's very lucky to not have gotten hit right there was Eric Kepf, who he was side-by-side with down into turns 1 and 2. He will be our lucky dog coming onto this caution.
We're going to take a look here at the 12 of Zach Henry. This was just prior to the caution coming out. I mean, watch this. So he's going to have a moment going into turn 3. That was the 10 of Hunter Brittle that nearly took him out. And DJ Stagner's got to be wondering what the heck's going on as he saw the 12 flat sideways in front of him.
I mean, once again, another incredible save there from Zach Henry. Just unfortunate that he's involved in so many incidents so late in this race. Still maintaining his spots inside the top 10, but probably not as far up the field as he would have liked, as he was with a chance at the victory earlier on in this race.
Yeah, and time's running out now as well. We're going to be getting this restart with 5 to go. And, I mean, how far back do you have to go here to basically pick who's still in the hunt to maybe be able to win this race? I mean, do you only go back as far as row 2? Does anybody outside of the top 4 have a shot?
I mean, honestly, by this point in the event, I think it's really between Caudle, Hayes, and if Lawson gets, close enough with the two leaders, fighting, that's pretty much it for me. I don't know if anybody else can touch them, because so far this top 3 has been so much faster than the field tonight that I don't know if anybody's got a shot at it.
It's been a dominating performance here tonight by Josh Caudle. Top of the leaderboard in practice, top of the leaderboard in qualifying. He's led the most laps here tonight. The only laps he hasn't led has been when there's been some pit strategy with drivers going off sequence. But he has enjoyed the view out in front, and he's looking here to get the restart with 3 laps to go. I don't know, if you're Caudle, do you want this thing to go green the rest of the way, or would you not mind seeing an immediate caution come out?
Well, luckily in this case, we're so few laps to the end that going green might not hurt him too much, as the green flag is out. Let's see how long that stays.
Jacob Hayes, how long can he wait? He's now slotted into second. Sensi and Lawson side by side.
Oh no,
third,
Hunter Brittle! Hunter Brittle spun around out of turn 2. I just caught a glimpse of it from my point of view. I have no idea who spun him around there, but ladies and gentlemen, it's green, white, checkered.
Going to overtime here at Five Flag Speedway. And that is a tough break there for Hunter Brittle, who is looking like he was going to finish this race, if not inside the top 10, just outside of it. And this contact, this spin, sends him outside of the top 20. Said it early on in this race. If you run into problems in the early going, you've got plenty of time to mount a comeback, but you get involved in an incident late, you just don't have the laps, don't have the time to get those positions back.
And I believe this is the angriest I've heard a driver over the radio, as Hunter Brittle was almost lashing out on some of the other drivers in the field. Clearly not happy, as with his finishing position, he would have been very close to, if not moving himself into the playoffs with that finishing spot, with all the issues everybody else has had tonight.
Yeah, 17 points behind the cut line coming into tonight's event was Hunter Brittle. And I believe it was Brent Kincott was the driver that made the contact with him. So we'll keep tabs on that, possibly post-race. But getting ready here for a green-white checkered overtime restart. Jacob Hayes, he's had really good restarts, has been able to tuck in line into second place, but he's not really been able to get within striking distance if he were to choose to use the chrome horn against Josh Caudle.
Yeah, well, that's the problem that we've had so far tonight, is Hayes has just not been able to get close enough to even bump him. Caudle has just left enough of a gap so far that pretty much nobody can truly threaten him. We've seen various times tonight where the field will kind of stack up behind him and get kind of close, but nobody gets close enough to truly make the move on him, and that's been key for Caudle tonight to pretty much maintain his lead position for the whole race.
He has been stellar on the restarts, and he's going to have to try and do it once again here, as we should get the 1 to green signal. I believe Chris White in the 61 was the recipient of the free pass under this caution. So we will have 24 drivers on the lead lap here, as Caudle, Hayes make up row 1, Sensi, Lawson row 2, Miller, Moore in row 3, then Madalinas, Stagner, Henry, and Kincott. That's the top 10 as Pace Truck gets ready to hit pit road and turn them loose one more time.
Caudle once again with a good restart. Jacob Hayes as well. This time Sensi in the battle. Oh, Ashton Lawson, who'd been in the fight all night, sent up and out of the way. That kills his chances at it. But so far, we got to look at the lead, as I believe the leaders are about to get the white flag. This race is official, ladies and gentlemen, wreck or not. And Josh Cottle's got a good gap to Jacob Hayes. I don't know if Hayes can get to him. Looking into turn 3, the gap is simply too big. Josh Cottle will roll out of turn 4, your winner tonight at 5 flags.
Josh Cottle ending off a perfect night here at 5 flags. Jacob Hayes with a drift there through 1 and 2. Josh Cottle now might have very well just clinched himself a spot in this season's playoffs with his performance here tonight in Pensacola.
Yeah, pretty much dominant and uncontested victory right there. You know, we saw Jacob Hayes try and get closer at various times throughout the night. We saw some other drivers try and get closer throughout the night, but nobody could truly ever get close enough to go for it. But these two drivers, I'm sure, are very happy to get the 1-2 together, as they pretty much had a successful night between the two of them. And Senzi in the 3rd position, fantastic in terms of points for him, as he was just outside of the cut line. This should absolutely move him in, as long as the win here from Cottle does not move that line too far forward.
Yeah, it's going to really be interesting to see the fallout of this race as far as the playoffs scenario going into Texas, because to your point, if Cottle's win locks him in, that then moves the cut line up. Sensi, I believe, would be the first driver out, as he would leapfrog both Steven Sims and Elliott Henderson points-wise. It's going to be some very interesting storylines heading into Texas in a couple weeks, as far as who is in, who is out, who still has a shot towards the postseason.
Yeah, and luckily we might not see nearly as much craziness happen at Texas. Never say never, but that's what I'm saying right now. But we saw the craziness here tonight, to be expected for another short track race here in the Great Lakes Truck Series. And hopefully in just a minute here we will be able to talk to some of our drivers, but I mean, Seth, this was quite the event, if I were to say.
It certainly was. I mean, you know, we knew it comes with the territory when it's a short track. We knew there were going to be cautions, and there were more than likely going to be plenty of cautions. But we did get to see some nice green flag runs as well. A lot of good battling double wide all the way through the top 10. Very rarely do we get to see good side-by-side racing at short tracks. Usually it's one dominant line. And here tonight, we were able to see both the inside and the outside line be able to hold their ground. So very good racing here tonight when we were able to see the green flag conditions. And I believe that we have some of our drivers on standby, some of our podium finishers. And we'll kick things off with a driver that started out the evening a little bit rough, but definitely mounted a good comeback here tonight. Driver the number 92, Michael Sensi. Hey, Michael, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Tell you what, we talk about it all the time when it comes to short track racing. Doesn't matter how bad your day is going, you never give up. You had that early spin in the first half of this race. You play out some strategy. Next thing we know, we see you in the top 10, then in the top 5, and you're up there in the final restart with a shot for the win. I mean, describe your night.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't looking great off the start, but I knew that if I just kept my head down, elbows out, and kept the nose clean, I was going to be there at the end. So just a little disappointed that we couldn't give it a longer run at the end and give it a shot for the win. But, you know, it is what it is. We'll take a solid 3rd place finish any day.
Now, I've got the question here. Coming into at least the playoff picture, was tonight a night you were looking at whatsoever? Because with a 3rd place finish, that's solid for you on points and really puts you right in the battle to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, usually I do circle the short tracks on my calendars, so really looking forward to tonight. It's a track I never got to run in real life, but tonight was a good show.
We ended up seeing varying portions of this race where there'd be long green flag runs, and then we'd have the short spurts with restart caution, restart caution. How difficult was it not knowing just which side of the spectrum each run was going to be on in terms of timing your moves, making said moves, as far as the tire strategy, giving up a lot of track position to take on the fresh rubber?
Yeah, that's the really difficult part about some of these shorter track races where, we got a lot of cautions, but, sometimes just out of the blue we go green for 50 laps. But I I came in tonight knowing that I was going to make my last pit stop around lap 60, lap 70 and just send it. So that's what we did, and we were able to hold on.
Well, a heck of a run for you here tonight, Michael. As Alex said, put you up there in that conversation in 2 weeks' time at Texas to maybe be in the playoffs. So congratulations on that. And now we'll hand the microphone over to let you thank some sponsors and do some shout outs.
Hey, I just got to thank Horizon Sim Sports, E95, Elliot, Jake, Austin, and Hunter for helping me out every week. And yeah,
Michael Sensi, your third place finisher here tonight at Five Flag Speedway. Congratulations once again on the great run. Good luck at Texas in 2 weeks.
thanks, guys.
And let's see if we can get our runner-up finisher here tonight, Jacob Hayes. Jacob, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. Got us?
What's up?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you gave it a heck of a shot here tonight. Always there on the back bumper of that 32 in these late race restarts. I mean, what little more did you need to be able to get around him? Because your trucks look pretty equal in terms of speed.
I think Josh saved his right rear a little bit better than I did. I was just a little too loose off the corners to stay with him.
Now, was there going to be a question tonight of you making a bump and run move to try and get the victory, or did you not think it was in the cards, or did you not want to do it?
With point standings, I didn't do that to my teammate. So maybe come Hickory when I show back up, maybe it'll be a little bit closer of a bump and run there. But I want to make sure he was good for points championships. So he can go get us one this year.
Now, we saw in practice you guys slipping and sliding around, a lot of drivers getting loose off of the corner. When we went green, we saw a little bit of that, but then when we started to enter into the nighttime conditions, we saw a lot more side-by-side racing all the way through the top 10, even back in the mid portion of the field. I mean, did the nighttime conditions cool the track down enough for you guys to be able to have a little bit more grip than what you had in the twilight conditions?
It played a big part in it for sure, but honestly, just the people running over each other the whole time was able to save tires good enough that I feel like everybody was equal.
Well, Jacob, a great performance for you here tonight. One of the cleaner looking trucks in the field this evening, which is feat in and of itself when it comes to short track racing. Congratulations on the great performance. And now we'll turn the mic over to you and let you do some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Just like to thank everybody back at the HGM shop, Drew, Jinx, RJ, everybody else who I'm forgetting. The Rocket Tire Race Wraps for the sweet paint, Jones Barbecue and Foot Massage, Mother Truckers. They're always down for the ride, and Jones Barbecue.
That's Jacob Hayes, your runner-up finisher here tonight. Solid performance in that 69 truck. Congratulations on a great performance, and as you said, looking forward to see you be able to put your short track prowess to work next time we see you at Hickory.
Thank you.
And let's see if we can get tonight's winner, Josh Cottle. Hey, Josh, it's Alex and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
What's up, guys?
I'll tell you what, I mean, we observed you in practice. We observed you in qualifying. Nobody was able to touch you in terms of lap times. It looked like you had the fastest truck of the night, and you kept that thing out in front for a majority of this evening. But it couldn't have been that easy. You had quite a number of battles right there out your rearview mirror during the course of this race.
First of all, I want to talk about that's my first ever GLR win. I'm pretty pumped. But yeah, that whole last stint, I was pretty worried because I saw how fast Zach was. Like Hunter was really fast. Since he was really fast, I was just like, man, should I pit for tires? And I decided not to because my lap times were still really good. I just was getting a little tight. I'm glad I stayed out though. Definitely paid off in my favor.
Now, it's a little bit harder to think up questions for a driver so dominant and had so little challenge tonight, but one of the challenges for you tonight was having to take a restart so frequently, and as the leader, How much concern was there for you every restart? Did you think that you felt better having restarts, or would you preferred having longer runs? Did you think it would have been harder for the field on those?
I feel like because of the restarts, like the tires kind of like had a heat cycle, so I was able to keep like the good lap times. I feel like if we went green, Senzi would have been a lot better than I was, and it definitely helped me. I'm gonna admit that, but after the previous race, I'm glad I stuck with the strategy I had going on all race.
So your first GLR victory, congratulations on that. But
Thank you.
even more importantly as well, you came into tonight 19th in the point standings. This victory here tonight, we believe, should put you into the playoffs in about 3 weeks' time, 3 or 4 weeks' time. So, I mean, how much of a load off your mind is that?
Oh, it's a huge weight off my shoulders. I was starting to freak out. I felt like I could have got something done at Bristol. Short track's about the only tracks I'm decent at in this sim. But I'm glad I got it done tonight, because if Senzi would have got there, man, I'm not gonna do anything like at all at Texas. That's like one of my worst tracks, so it's huge weight lifted off my shoulders.
Well, Josh, congratulations on a job well done here tonight. Never seemed to put a wheel wrong. Completely dominated this race here tonight, coast to coast, pole to win. We got one final opportunity here for you. We're going to hand the mic over to you and let you do some thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
First of all, I want to thank y'all for this broadcast. I'm definitely going to rewatch some of that and see all the crazy battles that was going on throughout the field. Thank everybody that runs this league. I've been having a blast. It's so difficult to win in this league. And I want to thank everybody at Spectrum, Jacob, Ashton, everybody that helped me in this race. I thank them guys a lot. Thank you to Cox Motorsports, HCM. Thank you to RJ for getting me so good at these short tracks, even though he couldn't make it out tonight. I hope he's enjoying Wilkesboro. And yeah, that's it.
Well, Josh Cottle here tonight. First career win in the GLR, and he's got a playoff appearance in 3 weeks' time with his victory here tonight under the lights in Pensacola at Five Flag Speedway. Congratulations, Josh, and go and enjoy this win.
Thank you.
So as Cottle continues the celebration down there in Victory Lane, that brings our coverage here tonight to a close. And Alex, I mean, we knew coming into tonight that it was going to be a bit of a wild card race, but with Cottle winning, this completely shifts who is in the hunt and who is not for that final spot in the playoffs when we get to Texas in 2 weeks.
Oh, absolutely. And with Texas being a racetrack more consistent to how people normally run these cars, we're not going to see nearly as much of a wild card, and that might be a spot where some of these guys that had poor performances tonight that we see normally run well on a week-to-week basis will come back and try and reinsert themselves into the playoff battle, but we'll never know until we come back here in a couple weeks.
That's true, and of course we have at least one short track that we're going to be going to during the playoffs. So what we've seen so far this season at Bristol and here tonight at Five Flags should be really interesting with possible championship implications on the line. But we appreciate everybody that tuned into our coverage here tonight on the FRN channel here at Pensacola at Five Flags Speedway. We hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. Congratulations once again to Josh Cottle on his victory here this evening. And Alex, it's been a blast. Appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Yeah, it was good fun indeed. Had a good variety of racing tonight, and excited to see some good old-fashioned NASCAR at Texas.
Absolutely. These drivers, they'll have the off week for Labor Week next week, and then they'll be right back at it at the Lone Star State in 2 weeks' time. But once again, thank you for tuning in here tonight. For Alex Kolonix, I'm Seth Cole, and you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.